A few years ago, I watched a gardener tear out a long row of decorative ornamental grass to put in a planting bed that most of her neighbors thought looked weedy and strange. 10 plants, nothing fancy, mostly perennials. Fast forward to now, and that bed is still producing. Zero replanting, almost zero inputs. And she hasn't bought a cough remedy, a topical skin salve, or a sleep supplement in years. That's not a miracle story. That's just what happens when you understand the long-term return on biological investment. These 10 plants are what she grew. Number 1, chamomile. Most people pull chamomile out of their garden because it looks like a weed, which, fair enough, it kind of does. It resembles a daisy. It seeds itself without any help, and it shows up where you didn't plant it. That's not a flaw in the plant. That's the whole point. Now, the chamomile in a grocery store tea bag is a different product than what you'd grow yourself. By the time it reaches your cup, it's been processed, warehoused, and sitting long enough that a real portion of its active compounds have already broken down. What those compounds actually do is worth understanding. Apigenin, a flavonoid in chamomile, binds to the same receptors in the brain that pharmaceutical sleep aids target, just without the dependency risk. Chamomile drives the anti-inflammatory effect. That's receptor pharmacology, not folk medicine. German chamomile, Matricaria chamomilla, self-seeds every year without replanting. No tilling, no inputs beyond occasional water. A plant that reestablishes itself annually and costs almost nothing to maintain starts looking very different from a bottle you repurchase every few months. Number 2, calendula. For centuries, healers packed Calendula officinalis into wound kits not because it was pretty, which it is, but because it worked. Modern clinical trials have proven what those field medics already knew from hard experience. The reason it got forgotten is simple. Pharmaceutical companies can't patent a flower, so calendula got quietly pushed aside in favor of synthetic topical antibiotics that cost considerably more and, in some cases, are contributing to resistance problems we're all dealing with now. The flowers are packed with flavonoids and triterpenoids that have genuine anti-inflammatory and antimicrobial properties, and topical preparations made from them accelerate tissue repair in wounds, burns, and rashes. Internally, it's been studied for soothing the mucous membranes of the digestive tract, which makes it relevant for gastritis and reflux. It's actually the herb most commonly found in commercial diaper rash products, which tells you something about its track record with acute skin irritation. From a cultivation standpoint, the more you pick the flowers every few days, the more the plant produces, right through the first frost. Number 3, echinacea. Echinacea is probably the most recognized plant on this list, and also the most misused. Most people buy it in a capsule at the first sign of a cold, take it for 3 days, notice nothing, and blame the plant. The problem isn't the plant, it's what part of the plant they're actually getting. The commercial supplement industry sells you the above-ground parts because they're faster to produce and cheaper to process. But the root is where the highest concentration of immune-modulating compounds actually lives, and the root takes 2 to 3 years to reach the potency worth harvesting. Echinacea purpurea and E. angustifolia are both perennials, so that timeline is just biological reality. What the clinical evidence shows is that echinacea works by modulating the immune response, not by killing a virus directly. It trains your system to respond faster. That's systemic support, not a quick fix, which is exactly why it rewards patient cultivation. A dozen plants started from seed will give you harvestable roots by year 3 and keep producing indefinitely after that. Seeds and time are the only real startup costs. Number 4, peppermint. Mentha X piperita is the fastest returning plant on this list, and it'll take over your entire garden if you let it, which tells you something about how aggressively it wants to grow. Most people think of menthol as a candy flavoring, but the clinical evidence covers a lot more ground than that. Applied topically, it relieves tension headaches. Taken as a tea, it calms nausea and relaxes the smooth muscle in your GI tract, which is why it's been used for upset stomachs and motion sickness for a long time. Inhaled as steam, it breaks up respiratory congestion, so it's genuinely useful every winter. From a cultivation standpoint, peppermint spreads underground through rhizomes, meaning it multiplies fast and colonizes whatever space you give it. Grow it in a container, and that aggression works in your favor, giving you multiple harvests per season from a single plant. Dry or freeze the leaves, and you've got year-round supply. Menthol absorbs well through skin and mucous membranes, so a strong tea or a simple infused oil covers the same ground as several products most households buy on autopilot every year. Number 5, lemon balm. Lemon balm, Melissa officinalis, doesn't have a dramatic origin story. No battlefields, no ancient warriors. It just quietly does its job, And that job turns out to be pretty relevant to how most of us actually live right now. Chronic low-grade stress is the baseline for a lot of people, and the standard pharmaceutical response to that comes with dependency risks and side effect profiles that aren't trivial. Lemon balm works through a different mechanism. Rosmarinic acid and its flavonoids inhibit the enzyme that breaks down GABA, which is your brain's primary calming neurotransmitter. Clinical studies have looked at it for anxiety reduction, sleep quality, and cognitive performance under stress, and the results hold up. It also has documented antiviral activity against the herpes simplex virus family, where topical preparations have shown real results. So you're getting nervous system support and antiviral coverage from one plant. From a garden standpoint, lemon balm is a perennial that tolerates partial shade, spreads readily, and produces heavily all season. You can harvest it multiple times before frost and dry it with no special equipment at all. Number 6, yarrow. Achillea millefolium is named after Achilles, the Greek hero who supposedly packed it into wounds on the battlefield. That's either a myth or a very old piece of clinical data, depending on how you look at it, but the pharmacology is real either way. The compounds in yarrow actively promote clotting and carry documented antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties. It was the field dressing of choice for centuries because it grew everywhere and it worked. The reason it got forgotten is the same reason most plants on this list did. You can't patent it. Beyond wound care, yarrow is a diaphoretic, meaning it promotes sweating, which helps break a fever by supporting the body's own thermoregulation. It's also been used for menstrual regulation and as a digestive bitter. That's 4 distinct functional categories from one plant. From a cultivation standpoint, yarrow spreads by runners and self-seeds freely, so a small clump becomes a reliable patch within 2 seasons, needing almost nothing from you after that. No replanting, no fertilizer, no fuss. It just keeps producing aerial parts you can dry for teas, infuse in oil, or use fresh directly on a wound. Number 7, nettle. Most people spend real money trying to kill Urtica dioica. That's the miscalculation, because nettle is one of the most nutritious edible plants in the temperate world and one of the most pharmacologically active herbs on this list. Its deep roots pull iron, calcium, and magnesium up from lower soil layers and concentrate them in the leaves, doing this in poor soil with 0 fertilizer inputs. Nettle also fixes atmospheric nitrogen, which improves the soil around it for every neighboring plant you're growing. Medicinally, the clinical evidence covers benign prostatic hyperplasia, histamine regulation in allergic rhinitis, and anti-inflammatory support for joint conditions. 3 distinct categories, all peer-reviewed, from a plant most people are actively trying to eliminate from their property. From a garden management standpoint, containment matters because nettle spreads aggressively, but a managed patch produces food, medicine, and soil amendment indefinitely. To maximize your harvest, cut new spring growth back to about 6 inches, and the plant rebounds fast enough to give you multiple cuts per season. The stinging neutralizes completely with cooking or drying, so the barrier to actually using it is lower than most people assume. Number 8, elderberry. Sambucus nigra went trendy about a decade ago, and the supplement market responded the way it always does. Products with wildly variable potency and prices that reflect marketing budgets more than actual elderberry content, growing your own cuts through all of that. The clinical evidence here is among the strongest on this list for immune applications. Cyanidin-based anthocyanins in the berry have shown up in randomized controlled trials, reducing both the duration and severity of influenza through direct antiviral activity and cytokine modulation. That's a documented pharmacological pathway, not a wellness claim. An established shrub produces heavily through the season, and those berries convert easily into syrup, dried stock, or frozen reserves for year-round use. The spring flowers carry their own medicinal and culinary applications, so you're getting 2 separate products from one woody perennial that lives for decades with almost no inputs. Commercial elderberry supply chains deal with crop failures, import costs, and processing that degrades active compounds. Your backyard shrub doesn't care about any of that. It just gets more productive with age. Number 9, marshmallow root. Althea officinalis doesn't get much attention outside herbal medicine circles, and that's a gap worth closing, because it targets a specific category of damage that conventional medicine mostly manages rather than fixes. The root contains a high concentration of mucilage, which is a gel-forming compound that swells in water and coats irritated mucous membranes on contact. That includes your throat, your esophagus, your stomach lining, and your urinary tract. So if you're dealing with chronic acid reflux, gastritis, or recurrent UTIs, The clinical evidence for mucilage's role in mucosal repair is solid, and the mechanism is direct. What makes marshmallow root different from most plants on this list is that it works locally, right where it touches, rather than absorbing into the bloodstream. That means preparation method actually matters here. A cold water infusion pulls the mucilage out without heat breaking it down, so you get the full protective coating effect that a hot tea won't deliver as well. As a garden plant, marshmallow is a tall ornamental perennial that tolerates moist soil and partial shade, and the root is ready to harvest in its second year. Number 10. Mullein. Verbascum thapsus grows in roadsides, gravel lots, and disturbed soil, where almost nothing else bothers to put down roots. It's one of the most available medicinal plants in the temperate world, and most people walk right past it. The leaves contain saponins and mucilage that work together on the respiratory tract in a pretty specific way. Saponins thin and loosen mucus sitting deep in the lungs and bronchial passages, while the mucilage soothes the irritated tissue underneath. So for a deep, productive cough or the kind of chest congestion that lingers for weeks after an illness, mullein is actively clearing the problem. Most OTC cough suppressants stop the cough reflex entirely, which traps that mucus right where it is. The flowers work differently, traditionally infused in olive oil for ear infections, where the antimicrobial compounds and the oil's occlusive properties combine into a preparation with real clinical backing. Mullein's a biennial, so it produces leaves in year 1 and flowers in year 2, then self-seeds and starts the whole cycle over without any help from you. What you've got across these 10 plants is wound care, immune support, respiratory health, nervous system regulation, digestive repair, and acute emergency response, mostly from perennials that never need replanting and cost less to establish than a single month of the supplements they replace. The industrial supply chain for health products keeps getting more expensive and more fragile every year. A well-planted bed doesn't respond to inflation, doesn't run out of stock, and gets more productive with age. If you value this kind of instructional depth, hit the like button so others can find better information. Save this to your reference playlist before your next planting season.